Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the current political situation of the country and, of course, as we see the inaugural session of the 16th National Assembly that is scheduled to meet at 10 a.m. tomorrow, the challenges that lie ahead for the new parliament that is going to be taking oath tomorrow. Of course, the coalition partners that we've seen as part of the ruling setup seem to be fully geared up as to what lies ahead, and they have reiterated their commitments and their resolve on multiple occasions. But of course, what remains to be seen is how effective their strategies are going to be into actually achieving the goals that they aspire to, and especially with regards to different political parties being able to engage with each other and being able to put forward a united front in terms of the number of challenges that exist to the newly formed government, especially with regards to political, economic, and then of course security challenges that are there for the country. We're going to be taking a closer look at each one of them and also at issues of political governance at home and of course the different stances of political parties and institutions as well. We've also seen with regards to this session of the National Assembly as well that this is something that is happening without the approval of the President, and this session was convened without keeping in mind that the President of course had earlier asked for a consultation, more time, and especially with regards to what he was emphasizing on in terms of the seats being full in the Parliament, something that many are saying is not perhaps a requirement, a necessary prerequisite to convening the National Assembly. However, doing so within 24 days of the election seems to be the case, and so this is why it is being scheduled tomorrow. And we'll be able to talk more about the legalities of this aspect as well, but also we're going to try and understand then in terms of how this Parliament is going to be active and how it's going to be able to navigate its relationship with other institutions and other political parties and being able to move ahead with legislation, and then of course with regards to also being able to address the numerous challenges that the government faces. That's going to be our focus in the show today. For this and more, as always in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, and we've also been joined online by our guest Barrister Shabbir Shah, Advocate Supreme Court, and Mr. Muneeb Qadir, who's a political analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of the discussion as always. Barrister Shabbir, I'll start with you with reference to the first question regarding the President's approval. Of course, we've seen earlier that there was a debate in terms of whether or not this is a necessary requirement, that seats need to be full, and whether or not we do need the President's approval for the convening of the National Assembly. And I'd like you to address both of these aspects, especially in terms of what the law says.
Thank you, Sana. You see, Article 91 is quite clear. It has been repeatedly stated by almost everyone. I don't see that the President, in fact, even has an onus on him to summon the National Assembly. In fact, if we read it in the other way around, it appears that if the President feels to summon the National Assembly before 21 days, then for whatever reasons he may do so. Otherwise, it is pretty much an automatic or axiomatic requirement under the Constitution. So by operation of law, the National Assembly has an obligation that it must meet on the 21st day, unless the President feels that he needs to summon the National Assembly before. So I don't think that it is a case where the President has, in a way, failed in his duty, or he's not going to face charges of treason, like some people are saying. But I don't see it as a legal problem. But maybe you have time for the second point, which is the reasons why. And I think, legally speaking, there's a lot of uncertainty at this point in time, and there is chaos on this point as to whether or not the question of reserved seats or the grounds on which he is delaying that National Assembly must not meet. Now, whether the grounds that he's stating, what is the legal situation on that? I don't know if you want me to answer this now or in the second round
Go
around.
ahead.
Go ahead, finish the thought.
You see, this is a very interesting point because if you look at Article 51 of the Constitution, for the purposes of reserved seats, provincial allocation is allocated to the women seats. Now the total number of seats as defined are 272, which are the seats directly elected. In terms of 272 seats, proportional representation is given to each and every political party. The law, which is framed in consonance with the Article 51 of the Constitution, the Election Act 2017, and the election rules, they are completely complementing the Constitution. And specifically, if you look at the rules exclude independent seats for the purposes of allocating reserved seats. Independent seats are to be excluded. So, for example, if tomorrow the election commission decides that for their own fault the Sunni Ittihad political party, for their own fault, because they did not give any reserved seats and the last date for such seats had expired, in fact you have to submit nomination papers. Each and every candidate, whoever is nominated by the party, has to submit nomination papers, and the due date for such submission of nomination papers has expired. So if Sunni Ittihad has not given any list, or anyone from Sunni Ittihad has not submitted any nomination papers, then I don't see how they are going to get reserved seats. But the question doesn't end here. This is the most important part. In my opinion, the reserved seats are not going to vanish in the air. They should be allocated. They must be allocated. Only the proportion. Previously, for Sindh, the ratio was 4.5. So for 4.5 MNAs, one seat for women was to be allocated. But if 90 odd independent candidates, as they may be referred to, are excluded, and if the election commission decides that Sunni Ittihad is not going to get reserved seats, then the number decreases to 3. In fact it would not be 3, but you would have to do it province wise, and for every 3 MNAs there would be one seat reserved for women, which would be allocated primarily, it appears, to PMLN. So PMLN turns out to be the biggest beneficiary if this is how it is going to be decided.
Right. So, with reference to the reasons that the president was drawing in terms of the reserve seat not being part of the parliament, then if we talk about the 24 days in which after the election the National Assembly session needs to be convened, and the fact that the parliament needs to be filled, if we take a look at both of these aspects, then which one takes precedence over the other?
Is that question referred to me?
Yes, yes.
The assembly must be convened, which would be tomorrow, and after that, the reserved seats can be notified, let's say, in 2 days or 3 days' time. They don't have to.
So it's not a requirement, but the 24 days is a definite requirement.
If you ask me, there is nothing which prevents the election commission from notifying the reserved seats. They should notify the reserved seats. They must notify them, and in the present circumstances, they should notify it to the other parties. Their list is already provided.
Right, but what I'm asking is that if these seats have not been notified, it is still an absolute necessity that the National Assembly session is convened within 24 days of the election.
Yes, because think of by-elections. For example, there have been a number of occasions where 15 seats or on 20 seats by-elections have not taken place, or it is decided that elections have not taken place. What happens in those situations? So I would say that it is not a must requirement. I agree with you.
All right. Muneeb, with reference to, of course, the challenges the new parliament is going to be facing, we also have to take a look back in terms of what previous parliaments have faced. And unfortunately, we've seen that there has been a lot of discussions with regards to different institutions, different office holders, and different positions also with reference to aspects and measures being taken or decisions being taken. And even now, before even this assembly has been convened, we see, of course, that this controversy is gaining ground, and is being speculated about in the media as well, with regards to the president's position and then the new parliament and the caretaker setup, and the kind of friction that possibly exists. In this scenario, how much of this is then evident of the fact that this is something that has continued previously as well, and will be a challenge for the new parliament as well, and how exactly will that be tackled if even from the beginning we see these issues arising?
So I think first of all, Mr. Shabir has, I think, explained the whole legal aspect of exactly what we're discussing here. But I think that the authority to decide, as far as the Sunni Ittihad Council is concerned, and whether they are eligible to claim, reserved seats and seats for minorities and for women, that vests entirely with the Election Commission of Pakistan. What's happening right now is that the PTI is trying to somehow delay the maiden session of the new National Assembly, and they are trying to contest and get a final verdict on whether the SIC could be given their own quota of reserved seats. But and that is exactly what we are seeing the president do. What the president has done is, although, as Barrister Shabi pointed out, it's not the wording of Article 91(2) of the Constitution does not indicate as if it's an obligation on the president to convene the National Assembly session, after 21 days at max. But at the same time, the intention of the president is quite apparent as to what he's doing. That when he has been pressed upon by various political parties to summon the National Assembly, and he's refused to do so, and he has, relied on this Election Commission of Pakistan not having declared whether the SIC is eligible for claiming minority seats, reserve seats, or not. I think that just shows that President Arif Alvi is acting in a partisan way, and he is very much aligned with the PTI narrative, with the PTI ideology, that it wouldn't be fair to convene a National Assembly session until
Right, but
unless
Muneeb, how exactly are you establishing this intention?
I think that there is a pattern to it. So I am not saying that this is some code of law and I'm proving things beyond reasonable doubt. But all I'm saying is that whatever has happened with regards to, the president's role, particularly after the ouster of the PTI government and its, previous chairman, everything that the president has done has gone against whatever the government commanding majority in the National Assembly had wanted ever since. I mean, the fact that the National Assembly had been dissolved in April 2022 by the president's order rather than holding the vote of no confidence. Similarly, later on as well, there have been so many instances where the president was a complete loggerheads with the PTM government, and now again that is happening. That when the coalition of parties that are wanting the National Assembly session to take place within the 21-day limit as prescribed under Article 91, the president is doing everything as far as he is concerned, or as far as he has any choice on the matter whatsoever, so as not to be seen a party to this whole political situation which has shaped up after 8th February. So I'm not saying that it's proven beyond reasonable doubt, but there's a pattern to it, and from that one could sufficiently glean that somehow the president just doesn't seem to be intent upon being in any way cooperative towards what is happening, not until unless the PTI is satisfied. And I don't think that the PTI are going to be satisfied ever.
Ever. All right. Muneeb, with also with regards to not just the PTI, but of course other political parties as well, it's also a matter of how these parliamentarians are going to interact with each other, how strong this parliament is going to be, and how exactly will there be dialogue across the board. And of course, this rhetoric was there pre-elections by perhaps all political parties, more or less. But now that the assembly is scheduled tomorrow and there will be part of the parliament officially, how will this be navigated, and what aspects do you see need to be considered?
I think a lot of matters have been streamlined. There was a lot of uncertainty the last week when I was here on your program. And I think a lot has been clarified ever since, because we know for sure that as far as, to form the government, to get their own prime minister, PMLN would need 196 seats in the National Assembly. I mean, 196 votes in their favor at least to have the prime minister of their choice, which is Mia Shehbaz Sharif. And a late night press conference had been held just last week between People's Party representatives, I mean Chairman People's Party, and then Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, and they've agreed who the president is going to be between themselves, who is going to be the prime minister. And I think that at least for now, uh, this cooperative, I think, arrangement that they have entered in would continue. And now, the focus is shifted on what portfolios would be allocated to which particular person within the government. Who is going to be the president is already decided, and that's Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, and that's part of the bargain that has been entered into by the PMLN People's Party. And on the other hand, in fact, the PTI-backed independent candidates, despite boasting of having earned the public's mandate, are really not standing on a very solid ground, because they don't have any political party based representation. Sunni Ittihad Council in itself did not even contest any election, and now they're claiming the reserve seats quota, and that puts them in a very difficult spot. And I don't think, again, I'm not a fortune teller, but I really don't think that the ECP's decision is going to be in their favor. It's very tough
Okay.
luck for them. Yes, I think that the reserve seats are going to be distributed between the parties which contested elections under their own respective symbols and now have seats in the parliament. I think that is how it's going to turn out.
All right. Faisal, of course, the inaugural session is tomorrow, and we, of course, are talking about the different political parties in this dance previously and how they'll interact. And we've had a lot of previous incidents or previous actions to sort of draw from, but also, of course, with reference to the current challenges that Pakistan faces. In terms of what the new assembly has to deal with, do you think that that can be perhaps any sort of ground for these parties and parliamentarians to be on the same page, perhaps with issues such as counterterrorism, issues with regards to foreign policy, the economic challenges? Will we be able to at least see them united at these fronts?
So now, obviously, when we talk about reconciliation amongst the parties, I mean, we haven't been seeing. Normally, it does not take place in the parliament itself, but of course, in some lush, bling bling type of, I must say, a drawing room of one of the party leadership, which we couldn't see, not in Islamabad, not in Karachi, not in Lahore, not anywhere else in Pakistan, that even the opposition parties would be sitting together with the parties who are going to be in the premier offices of Constitution Avenue. It hasn't been seen before, and I am not hopeful that they are going to be sitting together for the purpose of the core issues which are being faced by Pakistan, like economy. There are foreign policy challenges. There are challenges related to Kashmir as well, narratives of Kashmir. If we talk about western border, of course we have challenges there as well. Day and night we are facing the threats emerging from there. We are thankful to our security services that they are making sure that Pakistan is secure enough. And both of the borders on the western front, they have been seeing troubles in the past. And what I can say is that all of these issues, they need to be discussed, they need to be talked about by both sides, be it Sunni Ittihad Council and their allies in the of course the parliament, on the opposition benches they will be sitting at. First of all, I'm just anxiously waiting for tomorrow, because what I've been seeing is that there was drama in the Punjab Assembly on the very first day. There was drama everywhere. It was observed from all of the assemblies wherever there was first day. So I'm anxiously waiting for tomorrow. It is going to be
right. Anxiously is right.
Yeah, and why I'm waiting for, because I am expecting that this kind of drama doesn't take place tomorrow at the National Assembly. I want things to go smooth tomorrow. I want to see a government on Constitution Avenue, because enough is enough. There are troubles which are being faced by Pakistan. People are obviously waiting for a government that can provide them with the solutions, the problems which are being faced by people at large. Obviously, the only consensus which is seen and which we will be observing at least for a few months, initial months of the government, them parties are of course Pakistan People's Party, Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, and then MQM is of course sitting with them. Then all of these parties, they would be having consensus amongst them, but expecting that the opposition party would be in a sort of consensus with them, I don't see that in early days. Maybe in future when there are certain incidents that take place in terms of further challenges faced by Pakistan and dire situations are being faced by Pakistan, maybe sanity prevails at that time, but so far I don't see that taking place. And when we of course talk about the immediate challenges, them are related to Pakistan's economy, and we know IMF talks are only around the corner. The very first thing the coming government would be facing is how to talk with them, and what kind of hurdles they will be and how to counter them hurdles. These sort of things, of course, they will be the challenges for the coming up government. All I can say is that whoever of course takes the reign of this country must be prepared for a rough ride in coming days, and must be having a plan how to tackle in them rough ride.
Right, and that of course is important, but Farrukh, we talked about being anxious about tomorrow, and if we're anxious about the session of the National Assembly tomorrow, then should we also be anxious then of the government and then of the challenges that lie and how all of these parliamentarians then will be able to take hold of the parliament and run the show?
Right, Sanam, I'm not anxious about anything at all. I have stopped caring, right? So I'm beyond care right now.
You said anxiously is right.
No, I said that because I could tell that the man is anxious right now. But one thing that luckily in the end I felt that Faisal actually moved away from. These days our liberal anchors and analysts actually have the habit of sounding more like or giving answers which are customary of Miss World contestants, right? World peace, end of hunger, everything hunky-dory. Usually that doesn't happen. It is a tribalistic system, so there has to be confrontation, and it will be there. But before I go elsewhere, on a lighter note, I wanted to actually ask Barrister Shabbir, because he was earlier drinking tea, and I wanted to ask him, what is in it? Is it a elixir of life? Because every time I see him, he looks younger and younger.
Yeah.
But regarding the overall situation, Sana, when it comes to challenges, there are plenty of challenges. Faisal has already told you what exactly they are. As far as reaching out to the opposition is concerned, let me actually point out certain good developments. For example, Chief Minister Punjab, Mariam Nawaz, actually reached out to the opposition leader today in Punjab Assembly, and she told the opposition members that they are as much, participants of the political system and as anybody else, and her door is open for them as well. So it is something that is positive, and it was appreciated at that time by the opposition as well. But today, Mian Nawaz Sharif actually addressed a party conference, and there he actually laid out his case, and that is very interesting. He says that we have gone out of the way every time to woo PTI, and what happens after that is that they actually, never show the equal kind of courtesy. And that is true. You have seen it repeatedly. When PTI was, in government, at that time, because of COVID, there were meetings, and Mia Shahbaz Sharif was the opposition leader. Imran Khan actually refused to sit in the same meeting if Shahbaz Sharif was speaking, and he left. So this is something that you know about. How do you actually work with such a force that refuses to see you as a legitimate force, right? And this is an interesting case. I thought that I should actually bring it up. I hope in coming days PTI sees some reason and starts working with the system, because in the end it is a beneficiary through and through. Regarding President and what he has done, you were asking Muneeb whether there's any evidence that there might be, intentions involved or something wrong with his intentions. I give you two or three things. One, recently when elections took place, President repeatedly made public statements, right, to the effect that PTI should get what it's right, and repeatedly it was a partisan position. But then let me also talk about the principles issue, because right now some principles are at stake, I'm told. Then remember when vote of no confidence was taking place, and in the middle of that, the then Prime Minister actually moved a summary to dissolve assembly, and the same president did not even ask twice whether it was legitimate, legal or not, and he dissolved the assembly. Later on it was overturned. So frankly, and then there is another very interesting thing. There is a conflict of interest. This assembly that is going to be elected, it is going to actually vote him out. It is going to replace him. So it could be very easily self-preservation. My humble summation is, with all these tall tales, we keep on hearing about principles which are not on display, never have been, will never be. So why on earth are we actually, convincing ourselves that we live in a, and by the way, see what happens to him once he leaves the office and tries to go back to his own party. His own party will actually reject him. Repeatedly we have seen that is also happening. People kept on asking him to resign from his own party or party which elected him. Now, economic challenges, cabinet making, we have to wait and see what actually becomes of the cabinet. It all depends on who is going to be the finance minister. If the finance minister is somebody who is new, who is a technocratic expert, perhaps things are going to be easier in coming days. Otherwise, we are going to see a lot of challenges.
Yeah, Sana, with your permission, I wanted to go towards Barrister Shabbir. I mean, earlier Farrukh mentioned about his youthfulness. Farrukh, last week, of course, you were not here, and I was obviously lucky enough to...
One day I was.
I was lucky enough to actually meet him in person, and he certainly looks more younger and more younger every time. Barrister Shabbir, obviously, if we talk about the door of CM, as Farrukh has rightly pointed out, that Mohtarma Maryam Nawaz Sahiba, she has given a good offer to the opposition leader and has said that doors of CM are always open for the opposition leader to come and have a talk with her. But what we are seeing is, it is not the door of CM that they are interested in. The 99 members of PTI who are still knocking the doors of ECP with their Form 45s, should they be, shunning their position right now, and rather than knocking at the doors that are closed now, they should be knocking at the doors that is open for them in the larger interest of the people of Punjab, or they should still be seeking that door to be opened of the ECP, and if they are still standing at that door, will they be getting any sort of help or justice as they feel that they need that justice from that door? Will they be getting any, and do they still have some kind of energy in that Form 45 phenomena?
And by the way, too many doors I know, but I wanted to just add one more to the question, and that is whether the door of ECP was ever shut on the matter, because there are going to be election tribunals which are going to hear these cases. Barrister, over to you.
Sir, I mean, it's a political question which I will happily take. If it were up to me, I don't think the doors of, like Farrukh Pitafi Sahab has pointed out, that the doors of ECP remain open, which is a constitutional body. Election petitions also, whoever feels, I mean, even PMLN, some of the members from PMLN or Pakistan People's Party will be filing election petitions. That does not mean that they would not sit in the government or they would challenge the very process of elections. So I think, yes, if your question is that should they resort to dharna siyasat, obviously my advice would be that we cannot afford any more dharnas, we cannot afford any more long marches. Yes, that should at all costs must be avoided. But I don't think the worthy chief minister should take it upon herself if somebody in Punjab Assembly were to file election petitions, because that is their constitutional right. And even if they file election petitions, the door must remain open. Yes, the door can be closed if they were to resort to violence, if they were to
Yeah.
resort to
Yeah.
long marches. And having said that, again, I cannot help but express my displeasure on. I mean, it is unfortunate that PTI over and over does not learn from the past. This IMF letter could could be, I mean, I don't want to put words into anyone's mouth, but it is not in the national interest. It could be labeled as anti-state. So I don't know who their advisors are, but in the given circumstances, whatever is available, you see, the course on which PTI has embarked upon is most certainly not advisable. I mean, you look at the letter, the sheer contents of it. You are, on one hand, everybody is aware. It is not open to debate that we are suffering from economic crisis, and everybody knows that we must be attended to at the very earliest by IMF. And you write a letter to IMF saying that don't deal with us, starve us to death. I mean, I don't know who their advisors are, but this
Right.
is anti-state.
Right. I wanted to actually ask you about this because lawyers usually are very good at connecting dots and seeing the rational, continuum of arguments. Let me ask you, how does it actually start from foreign intervention and foreign conspiracy and ends up with inviting foreign forces to intervene in your country's matters?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds bizarre. You see, the foreign conspiracy back then was as bizarre as anything else. But between you and me, politically, whether that was a good move, it turned out to be that turned out to be a good move. Although constitutionally, I could not stand it for even a second. It was unconstitutional because the constitution requires, and even today, uh, the change in-house is a constitutional method. So, for example, if today a government is formed and tomorrow, let's say, MQM were to go to another party or any other party were to go at another party, that doesn't mean that there is a foreign intervention. But unfortunately, that turned out to be something which was politically, popular move.
Right. Muneeb, with reference to this discussion, and especially with regards to the way that we have also previously seen that whoever may be to blame or whoever may have the onus of fixing one thing or the other, unfortunately, other institutions or other individuals are also dragged in with regards to, of course, for example, these allegations of rigging. We've seen, of course, the role of ECP, but a lot of the political parties or the media even is also bringing in the courts, is also bringing in the caretaker setup, is also bringing in the military establishment and claiming all sorts of things. And so while we are looking ahead in terms of the way that this balance between institutions is going to go ahead, how will these allegations, particularly in terms of rigging and the also announced protests on Saturday, the 2nd of March, is going to then factor in all of this and enable these political parties to actually move ahead together. And add to that with reference to also particularly the stance that has been taken by the PTI and the courts with regards to the way that we've previously seen so much controversy in terms of partial behavior. how exactly will that also be navigated moving ahead in a coalition setup with so many different political parties being involved? Will there be a lot of blame game that continues, or will there be some common ground that can be found?
And Muneeb, if you can allow me, I just want to add in one more thing about this obviously letter controversy, which is being obviously which is written by PTI to IMF. Can we say that in this context, there can be a case, another case lodged against PTI as a political party for inviting the foreign intervention in obviously internal affairs of Pakistan?
I don't think so.
Absolutely. So these are three very interesting questions. The first one that Sana asked me is pertaining to electoral rigging and those allegations. Well, it's not just PTI though. For example, Mia Nawaz Sharif has contested the election result in NA15. So almost every single party has to varying degrees concerns about the fairness of the electoral process. But then linked to that is exactly what Faisal has asked me about. How do you react to, those doubts about the fairness of the electoral process? Do you try to seek the remedy internally through the relevant forums, which is, the election tribunals, your law courts, or do you otherwise try to have recourse to the very institutions and foreign powers which you had previously accused of planning your overthrow? That's the question. So writing a letter to the IMF, not only that it's not politically expedient, not only that it's not politically wise, but yes, I'm not going to mince my words. I think it is extremely anti-state. I think and I believe that that is the worst you can do particularly given the current circumstances in the country, which is not just marred by political upheaval, but also immense economic turmoil. So given that context, you are writing letters to IMF time and again, and you're saying that they should do an audit of the way that elections had been carried out. Now, how elections are carried out in a country is as internal a matter as it gets. But this goes against the Westphalian model of international law itself. The very principle on which international law is premised, that foreign interference within the territorial integrity, political independence of a sovereign nation, there is just no room for it. And PTI is the party, ironically, the one which said that we are going to break free from the shackles of slavery and Western imperialism. It's the very party which not only is writing letters to IMF, but has been writing letters even, it's public knowledge, to US congressmen, to US congresswomen. So, if any one of us, Mr. Faisal, I'd like to ask you to, just as an experiment, try to write a letter to foreign institutions and to foreign countries asking for them to intervene in Pakistan's internal matters, and then just see what happens. Yeah, any person who tries to do that, who tries to go against national interests, you will be subjected to all the relevant provisions which do exist in our statute book, which do exist in Pakistan Penal Code, where you are trying to run against the interests of the nation, and you are also trying to at the same time compromise Pakistan's foreign relations. And that is exactly what PTI has been doing for very long. So I wonder, how exactly is this person being allowed to write letters to the IMF? And no one is batting an eyelid. So I think that even if PTI has concerns regarding the fairness of the electoral process, you have sent out a clear message that you put yourselves before the nation itself. You don't care that in a time of immense economic distress, whether you're throwing poor people, people who are living below poverty line, you throwing them under the bus. No, you don't care about that. Just have things go our way. And the president from that very same party also does not care whether the National Assembly session is convened within the 21-day period or not. You are just trying to continue the looming political uncertainty and the economic situation that we are in. You're only exacerbating it. I'm sorry, but that actually raises a question on the legitimacy of the whole political party. And I don't mean to say it casually. I really mean it seriously.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Muneeb, for joining us, and thank you, Barrister Shabbir, for being part of the discussion as well. Of course, tomorrow will be the inaugural session. There's much that remains to be seen. And Farrukh, of course, you spoke about earlier. Don't be anxious that we're concluding without having your last word in. We're not anxious about the assembly, but this is there. But with reference to, of course, what we've seen previously and how we've seen the elections, and then, of course, different political parties, and now this coalition setup, then given the fact that all of these challenges at home definitely exist, and all of these political parties in their stance, and of course issues of political governance and institutions exist, what can possibly be something that needs the utmost attention of this parliament that we can absolutely not do without, and that will be required by these parliamentarians to do?
Right, Sana, I think that the first thing that they need to do is form a government. And I say this because the day the new government is actually going to take over, I am still divided, split between distributing sweets or actually offering you all to come to a dinner, right? But I tell you why. Then you actually can focus on the real things, right? So far, what is happening? When PDM government was there, and we thought that it might actually get an extension, it was an untenable position because the term of the parliament was over. Then caretaker set up also. We have been fielding all these questions regarding whether they have overstepped their own tenure, right? Or their accepted mandate. But now that this parliament is going to produce a government that is going to be there, and the parliament, of course, is going to be there for 5 years, it is going to then solve problems or focus on the real problems. For example, since yesterday, everybody is talking about who is going to be the PM, who is going to be the CM, and who is going to be the opposition leader, and Govt is sinking because of all those, reigns. And we haven't been, media hasn't been able to focus, or talk shows have not been able to focus on that. People are suffering there. Similarly, elsewhere also, there are so many crises that keep on popping up, and you have to actually focus on that. So I am going to be very happy when this government is made, right? Now, the biggest question or the biggest challenge, of course, is, economy. And that's why I said that the post of finance minister is going to be very important. If it is not actually occupied by somebody, then Shehbaz Sharif Saab has this tendency, and he knows how to actually work on plan B. And in Punjab, whenever there was, it was expedient or a compulsion that he had to accommodate a minister, he would actually go for these task forces and various other bodies to actually execute the matter. So he's very good at those things as well. In coming days, I'm sure that things are going to look up because A, there's going to be some kind of harmony in the system. The only problem, Sana, that actually worries me, and earlier our guests were also talking about it, is will PTI or SIC stop scoring own goals? Because they repeatedly keep on building the case that should have been over the day Imran Khan Sahab was actually interned or pushed out of power. Populists have this tendency of refusing to quit when they are pushed out of power. We saw what Donald Trump did. An entire American system is still reeling. And then we saw Bolsonaro doing the same thing, right? In this country, if you want to be a legitimate force, you'll have to, prove to everybody that you are at least flexible enough to know when you're down. Right now, I tell you, it doesn't matter whether they have the kind of numerical strength to form any government or not, whether they get seats or not, anything else. Right now, they should know where they're at. Their leader is behind bars. And if you go for the legal process, normal course of legal process, it is going to be years before he can get out if he hasn't done anything wrong. And then it is proven. Appeal process is such that he will have to stay there for long. So with due respect, learn something from PDM. Wait for the time when there is need for some kind of legislation which needs 2/3 majority. And at that time, you actually haggle and you negotiate. This is a simple thing. But they have proven again and again, A, they are not out of their mental high regarding agitation. and agitation has landed them in this dump, then they haven't actually learnt anything from making, trying to sabotage the system. Every time you do that, you score own goal. Please stop helping your opposition.
Absolutely. Thank you, Farrukh. Thank you, Faisal, for joining us as always in the debate. That's all that we have time for, and we're now going to be seeing you tomorrow.